The water's fine, homie, jump into the deep end. Sow it, you will reap it. We talking how to start it, how to grow it, how to keep it. Take a deep breath. You are now rocking with Founder Secrets.
Andrei Papancea, founder of NLX.ai. Welcome to Founder Secrets.
Thank you for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my secrets.
There we go. It's all secrets.
So Andrei's from Romania originally, which we'll talk about. But before we get into all that, our icebreaker for today is, what's your favorite AI tool right now? Which besides NLX for you, Andrei, and I'll go first. Do you guys use this HeyGen app?
No. What's that?
HeyGen is basically the ability to turn yourself into an avatar. I was starting to think of using it for this pod, where we could turn yourself into an avatar that's very realistic looking, like you can't tell the difference. And so I'm trying to do like more pods for our company, but without actually doing it all live. And so that's what I'm using it for. All right, what about you, Taylor?
You just upload a picture. I'm looking at the website, and it makes a video, or do you have to upload a video?
You upload pictures, and then it'll make a video, and you can fine tune it.
Wow, that's good.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Looks like it's from the hero.
So I'm going to save, because I have sort of an answer for this. I'm going to save it for the hack. Something that somebody on this pod told me about that I'm now using every day is Whisperflow. Are you guys using Whisperflow?
I know about it.
Whisper with a no E, so it's like WISPR flow. It sounds silly because it's like, oh, isn't there Siri? Like, Siri's pretty good. No. Siri sucks. Siri's so bad. Like, using Siri to talk, I just don't use it because it's just not good. Whisperflow is everything you wanted Siri to be. And now it's the way it was pitched by somebody who came on his pod. They're like, look, man, I type really fast, but in Whisperflow, I type like 200 words a minute. And I feel the same way. I'm like, oh, I type way faster and these things talk. But Whisperflow has changed my mind. Like, I'm now, okay, I'm in it. Like, it's actually good. And it forms sentences and it understands. So for instance, Siri, if I say like open AI, it'll do open space AI. Half the time it uses the word I instead of AI.
That might be on purpose, Taylor. But keep going.
It's just trolling. That's what they're doing. That's a good point. But Whisperflow nails it. Whisperflow's like, oh, you meant OpenAI. And it's just neat. What's really good about it though is that I use it on Mac OS and on the computer, I can use it to give a lot of context when I'm talking to LLM. So when I'm talking to ChatGPT or something, it's really useful to just say a bunch of stuff that I wouldn't say to a human, but it's really useful to like give it more context, and I'll just ramble, and then it structures it all, does a good job, and puts it in there. So Whisperflow is something I'm using every day now.
Interesting. And will it, like, say if I don't know how you talk in a way to result in bullets, but does it also get to like, maybe creating lists in certain cases, or just kind of like a continuous flow?
Yeah, it doesn't. Oh, I mean, maybe it would if I said, "Hey, make this in a bullet," but I wonder if it would say that. It basically puts them in paragraphs, but it'll even do like separate paragraphs. It does a good job, but I haven't seen it do bullet points yet.
It's the next frontier. What about you, Andrei? What's your AI tool you use right now?
I love using Gemini, Google Gemini. Their deep research, their whatever, the 2.5 Pro.
What'd you use it for?
I started using it for a lot of things, anything from more basic things like, let's say, competitive analysis, to I've used it recently. I'm doing a talk in a few weeks, and I needed something compelling. And I was like, okay, based on what you know about me, name, and my company, and this particular part of the product I'd like to talk about, and I gave it a little description, and this partner company that we're kind of doing the presentation with, what would be like a wow type of like impactful presentation. And it did a really good job. I typically, you go through a couple iterations over like 2 minutes, like not extensive, and really, really good stuff, all the way to I've circumvented the need to procure a vendor for $70K and I don't know 2% of my MRR by giving Gemini the architecture of what I wanted to do and what I wanted the team to sort of implement. And it did just a very good job at scaffolding the very robust structure for what was provided to it. So like, and everything in between. Stress testing, let's say you go into like a big presentation, it's like, challenge this, give me the root FAQ with strong, I don't know, arguments in favor of obviously my point. And it's able to, and by the way, if you use Gemini with the other flavors of the tool, not the same result. So just very important. But then if you use it in this particular mode, it ends up giving very like objectively solid responses.
Which mode is that? You're using the deep research mode specifically?
It's 2.5, the deep research mode. Yeah, just the it's yeah. I use it for so many things on a daily basis. I try not to overuse it for things that like it's not like I circumvent thinking because I hate going down that path. But sometimes it's just like grunt work that needs to be done and be like, here you go, and it does a pretty decent job.
How do you use this differently from like a ChatGPT?
ChatGPT might be able to do similar things too. I just trust Google more. So I think that's just like, it ends up being a personal preference. You know, we use G Suite, for instance, for the organization. So like basically it makes it easier. It's all integrated and stuff. And Google tends to release cool features faster. They do have that hacker ethos at their core. And it feels like they're starting to get it right. I know obviously they created a lot of these innovations that is ruling the technology world right now, but they weren't very good at taking them to market. And now I feel they're kind of front and center. Like what they announced in the last few weeks, I think they had their big conference announcements, like pretty impressive. Like their what's it called? Like VO3, that like pretty cool.
Yeah, I started using that too.
Yeah, I'm still trying to push my marketing team to lean in and some of those tools and see what they can do. Because they're powerful.
Well, you started NLX in 2018, well before the AI craze. But even before that, the wonderful success of NLX. What was your first company? So was Mangata your first company?
Yes, I guess the first one that I incorporated, let's put it this way, because I was co-founder in a couple others prior, but they didn't go super far. And then Mangata was I'll tell you a little bit of the story. It was a really cool experience going through it and whatever we were able to accomplish. But effectively, I forget when exactly we started it, maybe 2016, I want to say. But effectively, this was like late spring, and my brother, he applied for internships, didn't get the ones he wanted. So I was like, you know what? Since you're coming to New York for the summer, I actually have an idea. Let's just create an internship for you. And my idea was, how do you send people gifts without requiring their address?
It's a good idea. I need that right now.
Yeah, I would buy that.
I used to be I'm still very thoughtful, but now I'm very busy. So like, it's easier to forget things. But like, when you think in the moment, it's like, oh, you know what? I need to send Flavio something like nice because he did something nice. I just want to do it in the moment, because the moment I start to overthink, it's like, okay, let me try to figure out his address. Then it kind of ruins the surprise and this and that. And you end up not doing it. So we ended up building the end-to-end app, mobile app, gorgeous. Like we just did such an exceptional job. Very, very proud of what we were able to do there. We filed trademarks. We filed a patent for the process on how you could send someone a gift. And then, because basically, let's say if I send you a gift, Taylor, it's like a multi-party sort of orchestration where first, I get to, as the gift giver, I get to choose the date, time, and place of the delivery. when you get notified. You as the recipient get to choose the date, time, and place of the delivery through the lens of what the merchant, let's say the flower shop, whatever would deliver, through the lens of the merchant's, let's say, schedule and prep time and all that stuff. And then once you submit your preferences, then it gets dispatched to the merchant. The merchant preps it. Once they say it's ready, then it dispatched. This was like the early days of Uber Rush and Postmates, where they had like horrendous APIs, but they kind of did the trick, and they would dispatch a delivery partner who would go to the merchant, pick up the stuff, and deliver it to you. We had like, we would pass to all the merchant partners like these sort of like cards with like black envelopes, and like we had wax seal stickers with the logo, like gold wax that you'd put on the envelope. Like, it was just super cool. Day one of launching this, we like racked up like $2,000 worth of sales, but we didn't know better what that meant, and that was actually good. And then he went back to college, and I was still kind of working for Amex, and then ended up folding it. And then during the pandemic, our, at the time, like largely only meaningful competitor ended up closing their Series D. And worth mentioning, they looked like shit. There was nothing special about them. And yeah, it was one of those experiences where it was awesome, because like we immersed in a lot of like the mechanics of starting a company, and incorporating, filing trademarks, patents, etc., taking it to market, whatever. But it will forever be one of those like, damn it, could have taken it a little bit further, especially given what we know now based on the journey. But yeah,
Who's the competitor?
I want to say it was called Scrappy, which just makes it even worse in terms of the name. Let me see. I'll tell you right now. Crappy Gifts, or something like that. I'll try to find it.
Maybe it was crappy gifts.
No, well, that's definitely felt more appropriate, but no, it was something like that.
How did you get the address of the people?
Yeah, how'd you get their address?
A recipient would input it. That was what we filed for the patent. So the recipient gets to choose.
So the vendor, you would select the flower shop. The flower shop contacts the person via, I guess, email or whatever you have, and says,
I'm the gift giver, and I say, I want to send Taylor a gift. And I pick the gift, I pay for it, and I say, I want Taylor to be notified tomorrow because that's his birthday. So when tomorrow comes, Taylor gets an SMS like, hey, Andrei sent you a gift. Taps the link, doesn't tell him what the gift is. And then Taylor gets to say, okay, great, I want it on Monday at between 2 and 4 p.m. And I want it at this address. And basically in the process, we would just kind of like, our system would only provide time slots that are within bounds of what the merchant could deliver in and all that stuff. So then once Taylor says, great, this is what I want it, then magically between 2 and 4 p.m. on Monday, the gift arrives.
With that wax seal and everything.
With the wax seal and everything.
That's quite impressive.
For the business cards, we had like, business cards, nicely done. But then we had like smaller version of the black envelopes that you could fit the business card in, with the smaller version of the wax gold seal. Like, it was just awesome. Like, we got like one of the top florists in Manhattan on the platform, like the ones that like Vogue and Vanity Fair and Jimmy Fallon, whatever, order from. One of the top chocolatiers, a Michelin star restaurant. Like, it was just like, we were like getting like super quality stuff in. But again, there were a lot of like just business development mechanics that we weren't super well versed in. And because he was still in school, so he had to go back to college, and then, I was employed, ended up sort of like fizzling out. But yeah.
Wait, so you think it's too late for that idea?
I don't know that if it's too late, because there's still no real.
Yeah, I don't think anybody does that today.
Yeah, there's still like, there's been some others that kind of like tried. I don't know if it picked up the way it could have, but maybe at a later time might revive it. If still nobody does it, I'll absolutely go back to it.
Nice. So let's talk about how you then left Amex and started NLX.ai. How'd you get this domain name, by the way?
Amazing domain name.
Early on, I had foresight on the AI stuff. At the time, it wasn't the hottest thing around the block, as Taylor said. Basically, I mean, obviously, the process of finding a good name is very iterative. From the early days, like first of all, we help individuals, organizations, whoever wants to build conversational applications. That's been the ethos from the beginning. And when I say conversational applications, it's very much the natural evolution of applications, more broadly speaking. You had desktop apps early on, right? Whatever people would install on their PCs and whatnot. Then you had web apps once the internet became a little bit more broadly accessible. Then mobile apps. Thank you, Apple. And then now you have conversation apps, applications you can talk to, whether over chat or voice. And basically, when we started the company, we were trying to figure out like what the immediate go to market would be. We ended up focusing on enterprises and whatnot, and the platform had different layers, like because you have the crux of let's say conversational applications is rooted in natural language processing technology, where as a human you communicate something and then the system, the AI, interprets it, and then based on that interpretation, you figure out what you do next. That's natural language processing. Then there's natural language understanding, which is a little deeper, which takes the next best action. Then there's natural language analytics, natural language generation, natural language, like there's all these layers. So it's like, NL, maybe like a placeholder, there's like a math, you put the X one. And then we looked it up. NLX was available as a trademark. NLX.com wasn't, and I still tried to get it, but it's on like a website that was built probably prior to 2000s, and they keep renewing. And then NLX.ai was available, locked it in, and I agree with you. Like nowadays, it's like a very OG name. We also were looking for like a name that could kind of stand the test of time. So it's not like, there's a trend where everything ended in .ly or .io for a while. It's like, none of that. Because we knew we also wanted to target very large enterprises, given, I had previously built the conversational AI platform for Amex. I wanted an Amex to look at, a company named NLX and be like, they sound serious versus like, there's all kinds of, I'm not going to name competitors, but some of them have very funny names.
Like scrappy gifts. But NLX, so NLX is a, I think that what you just walked through is a way of naming a company is a very unique and interesting. It's like, hey, what's the common, natural language? Okay, well, let's make it a placeholder. I thought it was just like a cool 3-letter acronym, but it has some deeper meaning. What does like when you say conversational AI, how do people use it today? Like what is it? Like when somebody buys it and they're paying you money, what do they what does the consumer see, I guess?
So first of all, it's a platform. It's heavily no code. And in a lot of ways, what we aspire to do is I'm guessing you're both familiar with WordPress, right? Yeah, right. So what WordPress figured out early on is that, everyone wants websites. They're expensive. You go to all these custom dev shops who make it sound like a science project and blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, what makes a website special is not the programming language it's written in, not the database type, not where it's hosted. It's really the content and the design. And somehow WordPress still powers more than 50% of the web today, which is phenomenal. Or the websites at least, because I guess the web is an esoteric concept now. And then if you then come to our domain at NLX, the conversational application space, well, we're very much like WordPress, but for the conversational application. So that means what makes in a similar fashion, what makes a conversational application, whether it's a chatbot, a voice assistant, I have here TV remote, right? I don't know how I have a filter, I guess, for the background, but basically this is a conversational interface because I can talk to it. It has a microphone. The in-car experience, if I'm if I can talk to my car, that's a conversational interface as well. And the idea is, if you can conceptualize one of those applications, you can build it with NLX. So within the product, there's almost, I guess I could say, like a WYSIWYG, where you can design the application and deploy it across any channel, whether it's like a phone call, a chat on a website, and an app. These more non-standard channels, like I said, like the TV remote or in-car experiences. So ultimately, we give our users the Lego blocks visually that they can piece together to build their intended use case.
Very cool. And then you have some large customers.
How did you get Toyota?
Yeah, how'd you get Toyota?
Taylor was like the Toyota whisperer. I wonder, how did you get Toyota?
Partnerships and grunt work. Basically, we partner quite well with hyperscalers, and we have a joint hyperscaler partner who introduced us, and that particular hyperscaler partner was struggling to drive the value that Toyota was looking for with their out-of-the-box AI services. A problem that we solve through a practical lens. We strongly believe at NLX that pure AI doesn't drive, at least at the enterprise level, doesn't drive the type of value that's being touted in the market, right? So like it needs to be a blend of AI plus, business related logic. And effectively, by just enabling that common sense approach and not just expecting like the AI magic wand to just like kind of take care of everything, did the trick. And then, that's just enterprise sales. You build relationships, you prove the value. We like to prove the value prior to, stuffing the customer with paperwork and, hey, you have to pay us this. And that's like, no. I just want to lean in fast, prove to you that we're the right product to address the challenges you have. And once we've done that, then the rest just kind of takes care of itself on its own enterprise sales timeline, as I'm sure everyone's aware of. But yeah, that was Toyota and many of the other enterprise customers we have.
Would you say, because I know hyperscalers, you mean, I guess, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, and I know Google has this thing called Dialogflow, I think, right? That I've tried using several times and couldn't figure it out. So I'm wondering, is that what you're competing against? Is kind of this generic conversational type product that like a Google, or I think Amazon might have one too, and verticalizing it?
That's a good example. So Dialogflow, or the challenges that you've experienced through Dialogflow, and what, the level of effort that it might take to productionalize that, and equivalence from the rest of the providers, is one of the key challenges we solve. They're a plugin in our world. We look at those types of products and actually the overall AI layer as a commodity. This was a key learning that I have since I was at American Express, where while I was at Amex, I had to evaluate the majority of, at the time, the natural language processing providers, which Dialogflow falls under, ranging from tiny little startups. At the time, Dialogflow was still API.ai, and Google hadn't bought them and rebranded them. So from the tiny little players all the way to the behemoths like Nuance that Microsoft bought for like, I want to say $15 billion and now divesting of or shutting down. But effectively had to evaluate all of that. And I saw in practice the differences between the different providers were largely irrelevant. Because while some providers were a little bit more accurate than the others, in practice it didn't matter. Because if I'm trying to file a dispute, it doesn't matter if you can tell with like 95 accuracy or 95% accuracy or like 80% accuracy you're trying to file a dispute, if you don't have conversational content to drive the process automation. And as a result, armed with that learning at scale at Amex, we are completely modular and independent of any AI infrastructure. So basically, whether we're talking about speech to text, text to speech technology, natural language processing, LLMs, in our mind, they're all dime a dozen. They all perform the same function in their own class, and we allow customers optionality, which works fantastic because then whenever we work, especially with the very large customers, we don't have to rip and replace anything. We can integrate and extend their existing vendor preferences and make them work. We effectively decouple their business logic from the, tightly coupled, different vendors, and instead decouple that and bring them at the application layer where in NLX, where they can just focus on the business problem. And yeah, there's a bunch of important components, whether they're AI, cloud, contact center, whatever, that need to come together to deliver the solution. But we make that irrelevant in the eye of the customer, as it should be, because ultimately their problem is not AI, it's not NLX, it's not Google, it's not Amazon, it's some operational inefficiency that they need to solve.
How do they, like, is somebody listening to this who's not an engineer, or maybe they're not deep in AI? Um, uh, I think some of them, they hear some of these words and they don't know what any of it means. And it quickly kind of goes, so if somebody's experience with this is maybe they've done kind of traditional sales, or they've done, and they use ChatGPT, but a lot of these other things they don't know. Like they don't know what dialogue flow is. I think the vast majority of people don't know these things, even in enterprise. Aside from like small percentage kind of engineers and whatnot, uh, like how would you explain it to them? So how, if is it like making a contact center more efficient, meaning you don't have to use them, humans? Is it that sort of thing? Like, is it okay? You get 100 calls a day come in this contact center; those are all being answered by humans. We think that there's a way to take 70% of them over here and to use this flow, or to use a better interface. Is that the way you kind of think of things, or like how would you explain it?
I think it's important to highlight why conversational applications are powerful. And when I say conversational applications, it's literally humans being able to talk to computers, whether just spoken verbally, audibly, or via text.
Like Siri or what have
Exactly.
you, that people are used to.
It can be a lot faster to verbalize, hey, I need you to book me a trip from New York to Paris from July 7th to the 10th. And that's it. And then it just happens, right? Versus me having to go and browse hotels, browse airlines, go through all the process, click, 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 click. Now, so I think that's probably a very easy thing to react to. Like, yeah, it would be great if I just said things and they happened. Now, in the last few years, and with the mass popularization of ChatGPT like technologies, the state of the art of being able to understand when someone speaks freely like that, and then have computers be able to take action on their behalf for very complex tasks, has gotten to a point where a lot of those things are feasible. NLX makes it easy to build applications for those that power such use cases. And whether you're trying to automate, again, like that, some travel concierge, or if there's like a human agent in the contact center that talking to a customer in real time, and then the customer has some questions, and then the agent themselves going in and asking some questions to the AI to just kind of get answers faster, or whether it's an astronaut doing a spacewalk, just to kind of put an out there example, and saying like, hey, can you run a diagnostic check on the life support system of my suit, and getting an answer back, versus like having to like figure out like where they might need to tap, and right. Those are all use cases that can be a lot more efficient conversationally, now that the state of the art allows them to be.
And that's why you were talking about the context because like I think it's an important point that these tools that just understand language, that they're kind of useless in that scenario. Book me a flight to Paris these days. Well, if it doesn't know what your name is, and doesn't know your date of birth, and doesn't know a credit card number, and it doesn't know what type of hotels you like to stay in, or that you like to fly Delta,
or access to the systems that it needs to access, right? Because like, let's say if you talk to an executive assistant or to some human to do this task, they'll go to their computer and go in like they'll take your instructions and then go and do a bunch of stuff. Yeah, I mean, LLMs, large language models, ChatGPT style things, at their core, they're just very sophisticated autocompletes. So just like people type on their phone and it gives you like a word at a time, these things are very good. They have ingested the content of whatever humanity has done for as long as books have been around, plus all the era of the internet. And then they're able to just not predict just one word at a time, but entire chunks of text, right? And because human, let's say, knowledge encoded, I guess, and on the internet and all that stuff is super vast, and covers a wide gamut of things, then statistically speaking, then these models create a perception of intelligence. But in reality, there's nothing. It's just fancy math. Don't get me wrong, they're obviously powerful and magical and fantastic innovations that can drive so much opportunity for humans as a whole, but they're not Terminator. They're not going to take over the world. And like basically, in order to make them tick, because we have a lot of these conversations today. So for instance, VCs catalyze a lot of the bullshit in this market, right? You have like the larger VCs, the Andreessen Horowitzes and equivalents in the market, investing in some companies a bunch of money. They're kind of market makers in their own ability, right? And then they'll be like, the most important thing right now is this. And then everyone flocks in that direction. Most consumers of the technology or the buyers of the technology are not subject matter experts. So then they'll sort of look for that guidance. The large VCs will go in, pump a bunch of cash, and then dump it in the upcoming rounds, and they'll be fine. While in the meantime, they distract the market with all this stuff that has no ground in practicality. And then they're surprised when only 5 to 10% of the AI projects make it to production, for broad use. And it's not by chance, it's because there's a gross misunderstanding of and glorification of the technology independent of what's actually practical. And to kind of go a little layer deeper than that, there are a majority of the companies, the newcomer companies in the AI space, are just very thin layers around ChatGPT. And this is a little bit of I wouldn't call it a taboo topic, but it's like there's going to be a bunch of people who watch this like, like sour grapes, you just say this. But the reality is like it's not. Most of those companies, like if you think about, companies like Bolt and Lovable, and if you don't know about them, just look them up, where you can just like prompt yourself to like a very high fidelity prototype. It's fantastic. But like the level of effort to replicate that, if you're a average software developer, is not very high, because they rely in large part on what the large language model / the AI can do. And the problem is those applications are very far from done, because they're not tied to the ability to take any action. And in our space, the conversational space, there's a lot of these newcomers. And oftentimes we get contacted by their customers who have reached limitations with whatever they are trying to do, because they produce all these shiny toys that create the perception of they're doing the job that they're supposed to do. But then they stop short of that, because they go all in on the pure AI approach with no grounding in practicality. When I say no grounding of practicality, if we think about how the world works, any meaningful thing that drives value in this world is tied in one way or another to some sort of a deterministic process, whether you're making a payment, booking a flight, sending a text message, whatever it is, there's some like if this, then that logic that like right now the market is allergic to. It doesn't mean you don't use AI or you only use the deterministic stuff. It means you kind of have to do both, right? Because if you don't empower the AI to be able to make some predictable API calls to, book a trip or make a payment, it's just, again, a fancy autocomplete. Like, to kind of give you an example from airlines, there are like 50 to 100 different permutations to the logic of how you cancel a flight, right? 50 to 100, right? Like, are you eligible? Are you not eligible? Are you eligible for credit to the original form of payment or just an e-credit? Are you partially eligible? Are you generally not eligible, but because you have basic economy, but because you're within the 24-hour window, you can now cancel? You cannot hand this over to an AI, because if you do, it is mathematically, scientifically guaranteed it's going to get it wrong enough times that it's going to be unacceptable from a business impact standpoint, right? It's like whenever there's monetary impacts, like you can't just like willy-nilly be like, oh yeah, let's hope the AI decides most of the time to, take the correct action. And other times like will be, whoops, let's hope it's not a $10,000 first class international ticket, right? So it's like, but the thing is that this common sense is not a popular topic in this market because it doesn't serve the Andreessens of the world. Because again, they're pumping their money over here and they're gonna clean sweep and then move on to whatever the next hypey thing that comes around.
I just gotta say, some people might listen to this and think that it's extremely nuanced, and I 100% agree with you. I think that we get so wrapped up in nowadays in image gen or in VO or in these things that look really impressive, right? And they are really impressive. They're extremely impressive technical feats. But then I will listen to podcasts or I will see people on Twitter or whatnot who are like, this is going to be the end of we will have no more video editors after 6 months from now. By the end of the year, all video editors are out of business. And it's like, do you understand what these people do? Like, do you understand that so much of these jobs, to your point, is nuance? Like so much of these jobs and so much of this isn't just canceling a flight. To your point, you're 100% right? Like, did you book that flight where you were in the EU? A whole different set of guidelines, even though you're buying on a U.S. carrier. Like there's so much nuance to this that it doesn't necessarily take a human, but it takes somebody to write out all those rules and to really think them through and then think them through for all the scenarios that are necessary for that's just for booking a flight or just for canceling a flight. And these things aren't written down in dictionaries and encyclopedias. A lot of them are just like common cultural knowledge. Like you have to do the job in order to know it, or you have to book a lot of flights in order to know it. The things are like talked about in chat rooms or WhatsApp groups, but they're not like on the Delta's website. Like it's and there's so much of that through the economy, and there's so much of that through everything that we do every day that we just take for granted, that I completely agree with you that these are fancy autocompletes and they're very impressive, but they're not like, this is not taking all of our jobs 6 months from now.
Exactly. And the problem is that you have these echo chambers. Like, let's take Silicon Valley. I was at conference, let's call it, in I want to say in November last year, and I was part of some, not like round table in the kind of round table. Yeah, there were maybe like 15, 20 people in the group, and then there were some VC culprits that were trying to plant the next seed of effectively bullshit. And effectively what they're trying to push, and maybe you guys have also heard about this concept, it's like, well, SaaS is dead, Salesforce is dead, all these different companies are dead, the AI will just go and talk directly to the database and this and that. I was like, I don't think you understand how software works. Like I don't think you understand what companies like Salesforce and, AWS and different, these obviously are not equivalent, but you have all these verticalized type of software and functionality. It's like, again, the AI cannot just randomly just go to the database and do shit, right? There are abstractions and structure and things that like make a lot of these things proper. Now, will it eliminate the need for a traditional user interface all the time? Sure, it will certainly reduce that, because why the heck would I go to just kind of stick to Salesforce? Why would I go and create a contact or a new lead manually and click through that shitty UI that they have, like an input like the 20 fields, if I can instead just say, hey, I met with Taylor and Flavio, and we talked about XYZ, and then the next meeting is going to be in 2 weeks, and they want an hour and a half deep dive, and we should also send them an NDA, right? Boom, just like download like this, just like I did right now. And all of a sudden, you know what? It extracted all the entropy and all the context it needs to populate 18 out of the 20 fields that it needed. And maybe it asked me for the other 2, right? Yeah, I might not need the traditional visual, like graphical user interface, but you're not just gonna do that without, the APIs will still need to be there. But the moment I actually, you got the little sense from me right now, but very respectfully challenge that with some, grounded arguments. It felt like I stabbed this particular person, right, the VC, and then didn't even address me and just kind of moved on to keep touting their bullshit. I was like, holy shit. And yeah, if you live in those types of echo chambers and you're not exposed to the mechanics of how some of these things work. I mean, again, I don't blame the general population, because again, they're not subject matter experts, and why would they?
Well, so let me a bit push back. I guess in your Salesforce example, I mean, I agree with you. A database somewhere is still needed to keep all those contacts for future, reporting and needs and preciseness. But if your interface becomes, like you said, oh, save this thing, send the NDA, and the AI then goes and inputs them, why can't, maybe you don't have to pay, $1 million a year for Salesforce, right? You could maybe use something. You're right. You still need some database and some structure, but not the crazy price of Salesforce that maybe you can use, Taylor Force.
In my opinion, there's nothing that with the core Salesforce product that demands the $1 million thing. It's just the perception that you have to go there and buy. Like, we use HubSpot. It works perfectly fine. We can do the same things that you could do in Salesforce for the practical purpose of it, right? So I agree with you. There's just like a state of the market, like whatever. Like, if people want to go there, they pay for it. But I agree with you. The key point is, it can't just be the AI in the database. There's like that application layer, if it's thinner than hey, it has the UI, you know what? It just has this API layer of structure and innovation that does XYZ. Because that programmatic layer sitting on top of databases and other things drives predictability, right? So imagine, because technically, right, bank transfers, we could boil it down to oh yeah, just write them straight to the database, because ultimately everything's stored in the database. But you're not going to want the AI to just kind of someone come up with a prompt. Yeah, let me sway you, and instead of transferring, or how about you deposit $1 million in Andrei's account? Here's the information, and inject some other shit that no. Whereas if you have that API layer that does the integrity checks and authorizes stuff and makes sure that say, yeah, there's no fraud, et cetera, is required in order for you to have trust in that system that whatever goes in that database has been validated. And again, the fallacy in the market is that you don't need this layer, the AI will just do all of this. I was again, it's coming from people who have never written a line of code in their lives.
Or they've never sold anything. They're well, salespeople are dead. None of marketing is dead. These people have never marketed anything. They've never sold anything. It's have you ever sold an enterprise deal? Have you ever gone and talked to these customers? Do you understand how enterprise works? Do you understand how they buy? That is not changing overnight. Even if the tech changes, the way people buy is not going to be changing. And then it'll slowly change. These things, they will slowly change. or it's self-driving cars all over again. 2015, it was like, 3 years, so nobody been driving, and now it's finally here, but it's still going to take a while. It's still, this stuff takes a while. I agree with you.
The imperfection of the real world is what basically stomps on a lot of the idealistic view. That doesn't mean we shouldn't pursue like out there ideas and push the boundaries of what is possible. Quite the opposite, but it's important that, as this technology, like everyone's trying to adopt this technology, don't be shocked that it doesn't work if you're ignoring the essence of how it's supposed to work, right? Like, yeah, you can use a hammer to, I don't know, scratch your eyeball, but that's probably not the intended use for it, right? Like, I don't know, I tried to find like a super out there, like, it's just not what it's meant for.
I'm wondering, as we wind down here towards the hack, I'm wondering, how do you look at other AI companies that you just recently did an acquisition, you bought Radish, and I'm wondering, how do you look at companies to invest or acquire? It sounds like you're looking through this lens of how practical they are as well. So like, maybe talk about like, what do you look through? What do you look for?
Can they accelerate our go-to-market? Can they provide some, competitive differentiator? Do they strengthen our IP? In certain cases, like we have a bunch of patents, and in the case of Radish, there was known prior art. They were known prior art for us when we filed our patents, and when we found out that they might be on the market, it's like, you know what? This is a good expansion of our IP portfolio, because we do have some pretty differentiated capabilities, visible all the way to the very top of the market. And for a smaller company, that's valuable to protect that if you can. And thankfully, we're able to secure a number of those patents. And then on the other part is like, it might take us, I don't know, a year or two to do XYZ, versus we could accelerate that and do it in 3 months at the cost of X. Is X acceptable? Because the 3 month, getting to doing something in 3 months versus like 2 years, that's a pretty good validation. So I'd say those are like the two pillars that we personally like kind of look through this market. But there's so much cool stuff out there. I think the ethos of our platform is in many ways what I think is amazing about the use of AI, more broadly speaking, and in this market. It unlocks creativity. It makes it easier to unlock creativity, and not just for those who know how to code. Because engineers are not and I'm an engineer by trade before anyone just says anything. Like, we're not the sole gatekeepers of good ideas, and quite the opposite. Sometimes we're not, right? So basically, making technology accessible so others can kind of put their ideas and turn them into practice is how, humanity moves forward on any front. There's AI that we're talking about, but the same applies to just about everything else, right? So, and I think that also goes to the core of what technology, from a human standpoint, is always meant to do, which is improve our lives, augment humans so they can do more of what only humans are good at. Starting with the wheel and all the way to now where we have AI. And I also don't even look at it through the lens of like, displacing labor. I mean, when cars came around, it's like, yeah, there were people who were just doing horses and buggies, right? But that changed, and the humankind evolves. And frankly, I don't think there's any person who enjoys reading off the script to the same people who don't know how to navigate the website to read some details, right? But that's just the reality of how it is, and there's jobs and jobs, but humans are really good at something that computers are not, which is deal with abstraction. and truly create. All the LLMs, all these AI systems, like whether there's image generation, text generation, whatever it is, they create the perception of, creativity, but in reality, they just play back patterns they've seen, which again works well for a lot of things, but not for necessarily driving the next crazy innovation, right? Like that still requires thinking, which is why going back to what you were saying earlier, it's like, oh yeah, it's going to replace, marketers are dead. This is that. It's like, no, these tools for those who use them will make those people way more efficient than people who don't use these tools. But like, I'm not going to post something that an LLM drafts on my LinkedIn because it's gonna sound generic and bland and not have any particular impact. That's just not how this works.
People do it every day, though. You can definitely spot them all over your LinkedIn feed.
Yeah, when they invoke imaginary conversations they've had with customers just to then insert pitch for technology.
Amazing. Well, this has been a awesome conversation. We could go on for hours. The last question that we all go around and do is our hack. A hack that we almost got a double whammy today. We did one at the beginning and now we're doing one at the end.
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
Oh yeah, I have a screen share.
I was gonna do a screen share too. We need more YouTube folks from the podcast world to come and see the actual screens we're sharing.
Here's my hack. So my hack is I was looking for a mountain bike, and my hack's a two-part deal. One is ChatGPT is an extremely good buying companion. So by this I mean I didn't know what kind of mountain bike I should buy, and I didn't know. Okay, I didn't know what kind of mountain bike I should buy, number one. Like, what size should I buy? What do all these numbers mean? Like 21 speed, 27.5. What is it talking about? 29-inch? Do I need a 29-inch? So ChatGPT was extremely good at, because I'd ask dumb questions that I'd feel dumb asking, if I go into a bike store or what have you. And now they have the answers in the bike store too. Okay, so that's like one. And so I have a whole thread with ChatGPT about what brands I should get, what size should I look for. Okay, that's like interesting and unique. That's cool, but I think a lot of people can know that. My hack is to go on Facebook Marketplace, search for mountain bike, and just zoom way out, take a screenshot of it, and literally ask ChatGPT, which of these bikes are a good deal? And ChatGPT will go and it will, based on everything it already knows about me, like it knows I like Trek. I ended up buying a mountain bike that ChatGPT found for me on sale.
Oh, it's got the MSRP.
It's got the MSRP on here. It tells you how good of a deal it is. So it says, hey, this Trek in the top left corner is for sale for $300. The MSRP is $579. And based on the condition, it looks solid. This is a great starter bike. It's in better shape. Notice what it's doing. This second one, it's in better shape than the 300, or if it's in better shape, this might be worth considering. GT bikes are reliable, well regarded. So I could go on and on. This potential high-end deals, if legit and in great shape, it tells me, hey, that one that stump jumper is $1,300, but the MSRP is $3,000. So that's a really good deal. If and then it says like, these are terrible deals.
This is great. I should get a bike. This makes me want to buy a bike.
Oh, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Mountain biking's awesome. But I just did this to buy a new digital SLR, which you'll see for next week's pod. It's really helped me spend a lot of money. So, yeah, it's probably like it'll definitely increase all your budgets. So that's my hack it'll do it with Craigslist. It'll do it with any of these like marketplaces where you don't want to click through every single one. It just says, hey, that's a good one. Yeah, go investigate further. And then you can take a screenshot of the actual listing and it'll look at all the pictures and tell you, oh, that's a good deal or that's in good condition or that looks bad, etc. So highly recommend. Flavio, what about you?
All right, my hack this week is a letter. People used to write a letter from 1958 that this guy Hume asked Hunter Thompson on how to find his life's purpose. And it's this famous letter that Warren Buffett popularized, I think, one year when he shared it. But it was about like, basically the person asked about how to find their purpose and how to set their goals. And this is a very good letter that kind of argues against goals, and it's a very short read, as you see. It's a pretty short letter, and it argues against goals and more towards the way of life. And I found it just very, very, very inspiring. So I'll put the link in the notes. But if you search Hunter Thompson letter, you would find this letter from 1958.
He was only 22 when he wrote that letter. Wow. That's amazing.
What about you, Andrei?
Mine was gonna be very similar to Taylor's, because I just love structuring a good descriptive question or sequence of questions, and then uploading a bunch of documents or screenshots to your point and stuff, and just like solve this for me. I did that with contracts, where like, just needed to check some conversation with some vendor against the contract we had. Be like, hey, here's what the vendor says. Here's what my mental thinking is. Here's what the contract is. Give me two cents on this. Another one I used it for that was rather interesting. We're always filing patents, and we basically, we're one of our patents is in a close to acceptance, let's say, but like the whoever is reviewing it, I forget what they're called, from the USPTO, had some challenges, and our lawyer, basically, I provided my insights to the lawyer, and then the lawyer was kind of challenging them back, our lawyer, because that's their role, right? So I was like, well, I don't know that I think I'm right in this case. So what I did is I took the conversation, what the examiner, that's what they're called, from the USPTO, what they said, what my lawyer said, what my stance and understanding is, and then I said, is this true? Like what my assumption was. And then I also attached the patent, the actual patent draft. And what was interesting is it came back, my understanding of something was actually incorrect, but the essence of my argument was actually valid, and it was strengthened by a number of different points. And then I went back and I sent this to the lawyer. I was like, hey, by the way, I used Gemini for this, but like I checked it and it's technically sound for me as the, let's say human expert working through this. And he came back, it's like, wow, that's very interesting. And he's like, I can see this. I can see this now, right? So it's like, but you have to ask your questions, right? The more depth you add, and I'm not saying write an entire 2-page paper, but like, it can be like a solid paragraph. The more you significantly increase your chances that you'll get like an actual accurate response. So just kind of taking Taylor's example, but taking it into some other directions that can actually be very valuable.
Like to your point, just ramming lots of content or context into a question leads to the screenshots, just talk, using Whisperflow or whatever, and it leads to much better answers than just asking a simple 1-sentence question.
Wait, have you ever litigated one of these patents? Do you have that you've won, or using it more as like a value building for a potential buyer down the road?
It's a mix. I mean, there's the value of just, hey, at the very least, the IP is defensible, right? Like it's differentiated, then it's defensible.
But have you had any like lawsuits or like, hey guys, or Google, hey, you're losing our patent that NLX has, and you're like, why don't you pay us a little money here?
I'll just say we're aware of the state of everyone's stuff, and should it be strategically valuable for us to explore options other than just accumulating these patents, we can pursue those.
Coming after you.
Exactly. It hasn't been strategically useful to do so to date.
Gotcha. Andrei, thanks so much for coming on, man. Great work, and keep it up.
Likewise. Thank you so much. This was fun.
Thank you for rocking with the homies. Taylor, Trusty, and Flavio. Seize the day, own it. Until next time. Hold it down, hold it down. Hey.